Hi, I'm Mara Webster with In Creative Company, and thank you for joining us for one of our talks today. Today, we're so lucky to be joined by the fantastic Carlacia Grant to talk all about the second season of Netflix's Outer Banks. And the first thing I wanted to ask you about is coming into a show that's already had a fully fledged season and really figured out what the voice of its show is, the types of characters that it wants to bring into screen, how that then parlayed into your character development for Cleo, and really figuring out how you wanted to shape her to bring her into the world of the show in season two.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to work with creatives who were really open to my point of view and really wanted my point of view. Our writer slash show creator, Josh and Shannon, I sat with both of them and they both wanted to know what I wanted to do with Cleo and told me like their ideas. It was very collaborative. Like I was able to say, let's do this more, let's do that more. And they listened to me and they talked to me and they were like, with your how you take Cleo, we love it. So just do more of that. So that was really, really fun. And just joining in with the cast, it was really effortless, to be honest. I really just jumped in and it just worked. We just really clicked and vibed. I know my first day was like a little bit of a like I was a little bit nervous. Like my first day, my first scene, it was actually like the container scene in like episode 10. Um, which is in South Carolina. I was a little bit nervous. Like I was, trying to figure out the rhythm. Like you're filming with all these different people. And they were really cool. And they were like, you know what? We've been doing this for a year now. We're way further than you. We already know what we're going to do. So just be you, be yourself, do your thing. And if you make any mistakes, we'll catch you. So that was really, really cool. So no, it was really effortless and really, really fun. It was like I hopped in. It's like I was there for years. I've been there for years.
That's amazing to have that immediate sense of trust in just knowing that you have that safety net beneath you with everybody on side. So once you had that experience when you're shooting those first scenes, how did that open up the spaces that you felt like you were able to go performance wise, or things that you were finding in scenes as you continue to shoot the show, just knowing it's okay to try something because if it doesn't work, we'll do something else and everybody's going to catch me.
Oh, it made me so much more free. It made Cleo actually be like who you kind of see on character because it was like I just made her on steroids. Like whatever it was, I just added more. I added more ad libs. I made her bigger. I made her more aggressive. Like and just that creative freedom. I just did so much more, and just to be like, I can get another take if I wanted another take. It just made the process so much more fun and so much more exciting, and it just made me free and free in that character. So it was exciting.
Yeah, and you were talking just before about the conversations that you had with the entire creative team and how they really looked to you for a lot of details of who she was. What were some of the first details of Cleo as a character that were really important to you and being a huge part of her core and her foundation?
Well, Cleo is Bahamian and I am West Indian. So for me, I really stress that I'm representing the West Indies. So I want her to represent the West Indies in a way that is going to make like our people and West Indians proud. So that was a big thing that we talked about with the accent, some things that she did, like yeah. Well, there was one part where we were going to shoot a scene some way, and I was like, I don't think Cleo would do this. Like Cleo would know. Cleo would know how to do this, and they were like, okay. And then they rewrote it like to where Cleo would like know how to do this. Um, so yeah.
What's your technique like when it comes to working on dialect like you had to for the show? And what were some of the really specific sounds that you had to be able to find for her voice?
Definitely with the tone. Definitely it's like the singiness of it. Finding that, and I definitely made a point as to research the Bahamian culture and say things that a Bahamian would say. Like for instance, Cleo would say like mother sick dread, like which is like damn. I did add like a Barbados, like a Bayesian term, which is like cheese on bread. But I'm like, she's essentially a pirate, so she's been on the boat, so she's been on all these islands. So definitely making sure that she says like terms that are from like the West Indians, Ross Hole. Like there were a lot of words that I threw in there that were like true to nature.
Yeah. And she has such a strong tie and connection and relationship to the island as well. And it comes down to the intricacy of just she knows that space inside out. She knows when they get in trouble exactly where they need to go, who they need to talk to, because she's got history and relationships with everybody around her. So, how did you create a lot of those aspects in what her relationship to the island was going to be?
That was just a lot of imagination and a lot of just personal work with me. Like when I create a character, one of the main things that I do is I diary as a character. So I'll like fill up a whole diary of like thoughts, and I'll do it like in the voice of Cleo. So I definitely started with the relationship with her grandmother who passed away, but really building up that relationship of having the first 12 years of her life with this woman who wasn't her mom, but who raised her with this strength and this power. And one thing that I kept in it that really I used was that her grandmother knew that she was going to die and was telling Cleo, like, you know, you're going to have to go further without me, but you have everything it takes to go further. Like, you can do this. Just use what you have around you. You just don't have me, but I'm here in spirit, which impacted Cleo's use of resources, even with Terrence and Stubbs and everyone around her. And that's her home. That's her country. So no, me being I've been to the islands quite a few times. So I know also watching that and seeing like how some people or my family or some of my cousins are on the islands, how they just walk across the street or go around the corner. Like they just know someone for anything you can think of, they know somebody. So I just use that and just put that into the character.
And I love that you were bringing up how formative her relationship with her grandmother was, because there's that line of dialogue in the scripts about her dad leaving, her grandmother passing away, and then essentially not having a home and not having a family. So from the diary work that you were doing, what sort of details did you shape in terms of, well, how old was she when this happened? What was that experience when she first had to step out on her own, especially with what you were saying about her knowing that that was coming a little bit?
I put that she was 12 when it actually happened. And I just basically talked about what my grandmother taught me, or like what my character's grandmother taught me about pride and the pride of the people and the pride of the Bahamians and the culture and your people and going after your dreams and following what you believe in, keeping your morals. Don't let, like, one of the main things I was like, my grandmother would tell me, don't ever don't ever let anyone do anything to you that you don't want them to. You're going to have to learn to protect yourself in that space, in this space without me, because you're not going to have like this protector anymore. So a lot of diary about that, which came as like the strength, why she's so like, no, this is, I run this. So those kinds of things impacted like a lot of the way that she moves in certain environments.
And exactly to that point, she's a character who has so much strength. But I was interested in if you felt that there's also within that, there's a necessity to keep up certain walls and to keep certain people with a little bit of distance for that self-preservation that she has to have because she's got such a strong survival instinct.
Absolutely. I think that her relationship with Terrence really impacted how she was, because she was with Terrence like I guess she's 17 now, so about five or 6 years now. So, but she still couldn't trust him. So even through all of that, she's with a person who she knows will cross her at any moment if it ever came down to money, or he'd sell me out for any reason. So that really made my character be like, well, can't trust anybody.
And it feels like she's the moral compass to him and she's always there to try and reel him in a little bit. There's the moment where, they're supposed to be waiting for Sarah and Johnny B. And he's like, we're giving them 8 minutes, right? She's like, no, we said 8 hours. We have to wait here for 8 hours to see if they're going to make it back. And I thought it was interesting with that dynamic as well, how like, even though she knows that he's essentially in charge and calling the shots, that she's still able to reel him in. So how did you set about deciding when she was going to kind of like step up and kind of be the one to tell him how things were going to work in that way?
Well, Cleo knows that she can take care of herself. Like, Cleo does hang with Terrence and Stubbs, and they do make a great group, but Cleo does know that she's the brains of the operation. Like, that's a fact. Maybe Terrence has the boat but you meet her steering the boat, so she knows that she's witty enough to be able to handle herself under any circumstance. And to be honest, me personally and Terrence personally, we hit it off like that. So truthfully, a lot of Cleo and Terrence banter. Okay, so Terrence's name in real life is Terrence, like the character Terrence. So when I keep saying Terrence, his name is really Terrence. But me and the real Terrence, we really do have like this banter back and forth that we would just play around with, like just regularly. So by the time it got on screen, it was very easy that we would just keep having this banter. Every time he says something, I'll say something back. So that just played on screen. But Cleo, she's not afraid of anybody. She definitely isn't afraid of Terrence. So what is he gonna do? Throw her out? He needs her. She negotiated the whole deal. If it wasn't for her, they wouldn't have gotten as money, the biggest cut as she would have. So, and that's actually one thing, going back to your other question, that's one thing that Josh and Shannon really told me about as far as creating the Cleo character. He was like, she's named Cleo after Cleopatra. So she is a queen, first of all. And if you know the story about Cleopatra, she always used her wits and her mind to get whatever she wanted. So that was a note that he used. He was like, she's in between Cleopatra and Princess Leia, where she's smarter than everyone in the room, stronger than everyone in the room, faster than everyone, but she doesn't have to show it. So I knew going into that Terrence, he couldn't do anything to me. So yeah.
That's my favorite fact about the entire season so far, is the naming.
Yeah. We thought that was fun too. We thought that was fun. Once we found out, I was like, queen. That's where you see like a lot of the queens going back and forth. That's where that came from.
Also, even going beyond what you're saying about the way that she uses so much of her wit and so much of her mind, it's also really fun to watch her figure out and navigate these situations, because she has so much fun with it and takes a lot of joy from it. Whether it's flagging down Sarah's dad's truck, pretending that the road is closed, like you see a total glint in your eye of like, this is fun, isn't it? Or it's waving which direction a crane should carry a giant piece of metal in the sky. And so was that something that was very clear to you early on, that you wanted to make sure that there was that level of joy and enjoyment in all of the essentially shenanigans that she gets into throughout the series?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then some of that was Jonas yelling, she's a cat. She's a cat. She's like a cat. And I'm like, okay. So a lot of that was, and some of that truthfully was improv, like that, the waving of the flag, that whole part, but that whole part with me walking up where it was like massive sinkhole, that was all improv. Like that was just all just improv, the cross improv. But a lot of that was just with the note, she's like a black cat, like, so whatever, you see a black cat, which I don't know if this is true, but like, how the myth goes, like you see a black cat, you don't trust the black cat, you kind of watch the black cat, but the black cat, if it makes eye contact with you, like it got you. So it's like that. So that's kind of like how I would take in like Jonas saying like, she's like a cat. So it was like, okay, as long as I can get you to lock eyes with me, then I got you.
I have a black cat, and that is absolutely true.
Good to know. Good to know. Good to know.
And then also kind of jumping back a little bit to what we were talking to before, with the idea that, she does have a little bit of a guard up. She does have that survival instinct. At the same time, when like John B and Sarah come along, there's something about them that she becomes very open to them very immediately. She shares information that she doesn't have to hand over to them. So what did you feel that it was with their characters that so immediately brought that out in her?
The moment when, there was two moments. The first moment was when I'm literally attacking John B with a knife to his throat, and his first instinct is still to be like, well, where's Sarah? So for my character to see love like that, like reminded her again was her relationship with her grandmother, like fighting to do anything you want for someone that you love. And the second part where she really was like, really paid attention was that moment in the house in episode 1 where I bring John B in the house, and Terrence is like, get rid of him. I don't care. Let's get the bounty on their head. And Sarah's character is literally willing to give up gold, money, something of value to save her love. They were willing to do anything for their love. And once Cleo recognized that, she saw loyalty. That's something that was missing in her life because she didn't have that with Terrence, and they move around a lot. So it was like, these people really care about each other, their love. So that's what really made the Cleo character be like, I can trust them, because we've seen what Terrence did when it came to money. Like when we first got to the safe, like he totally switched up and backstabbed them. So it was like, wow. So if these people love you, they won't backstab you. So that's, to me, that's what made Cleo be like, okay, these are people who I want to see win, to see love like that.
And Cleo also has to really be able to hold her own physically in a lot of different ways, even if it's just commanding the presence of people around her. But there's also, a scene on a ship later on where she is in a physical altercation with someone who is much bigger and, technically speaking, much stronger than her. And yet she overpowers him because of how she fights. So because of that, I wanted to ask about the general physicality that you wanted to bring to her that you were touching upon before, but also how that led into a lot of the dynamic and the stunt work in how she fights so specifically.
Yeah. So immediately, once I got to the part, I immediately got into training. I got with my trainer, Max Solomon, and we were in the gym 6 days a week, really weightlifting, cardio, because I wanted people to see Cleo and to see that she's been through some stuff. Like just physically, she's always with the boys. So I wanted people to be able to see her and to be like, oh, she could take you. And we had a brilliant stunt team that worked with me endlessly, teaching me all these stunts and all these coordinations. And the knife thing, that was all just training with our wonderful stunt team and just repetition and this is the first time I've ever had to do like stunt training for a role. And it was so much fun. It was so much fun. It was great. And Cleo, she uses her mind. So when Pope was winning in that fight, the first thing she did was she resorted to her hand being in pain to soften him. And as soon as she softened him, she kicked him in the not so greatest area. And then she was able to regain control. So again, in the moments where she can't necessarily overpower someone, she outsmarts someone. And that was the biggest note that they were, telling about Cleo, that she just outsmarts them. So yeah.
And I feel like through the relationships that we see her develop and kind of the fact that she does find this sense of community and kind of a found family that she hasn't had for a long time in her life, it allows a little bit more vulnerability to start showing up. So what were some of the ways in which you started to shape the way that she would allow her guards to then fall down later in the show and to show different sides of herself and almost to show her vulnerability as well as a little bit of her fallibility as well?
So by the time we fast forward into episode 10 is when we re-meet Cleo. First person I see is Pope, and Cleo was gonna rip, Pope's head off her shoulders. However, he was a friend of people who Cleo loved and admired and saw something in. So it's like a friend of yours is a friend of mine. So again, to see to fast forward to move into like now we're in the container ship and to still see the camaraderie between these guys who really did a suicide mission but are willing to like do the stupidest thing ever, like from Cleo's mind, to try to take over a ship with no weapons, like no nothing, but to still be willing to do all of this to save a friend. So again, that really was what you really started to see Cleo just like soften, especially when she got out the container ship. I think she made up her mind when she jumped out that window. Like it was like, and by the time she ran there and she talked to Macias's character, I think she was like, you know what? I'm not happy with Macias either. I'm working in this stupid engine room. It's hot down here. I keep telling them it's not working and they're not listening to me. So I think she wanted out. I think she wanted out too. And she really did miss. At least I journaled that she really did miss and was very curious about whatever happened to John B. and Sarah, because that was a pivotal moment in her life. She, up until this point, she didn't see love like that.
What was the process of filming all of those scenes that were coming together for that container moment in episode 10, though? Because it's so intricate and they really have you running around and physically moving into every single different space within the ship as well.
It was a ship. It was filming on a ship. It was filming on a ship. You know, we had to wear, it was a lot of rehearsals, to be honest. We rehearsed a lot, and in certain takes we would switch out, like we would put a fake knife in. So, you know, nothing's, you know, not gonna happen. And we would just go sometimes bit by bit, scene by scene. So maybe we'll just like flip one time, cut, reset. And then, so because we were working on a real ship in really tight spaces, we rehearsed a hell of a lot. And we were just very, very careful, like very, very careful. And sometimes we used fake props until it was time to like use a real prop. But,
Until you got the real knives out
a few times. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if it's a close up, we got real knife. To be honest with you, it was very hard for me to spin the fake knife because I got so used to like the heaviness of the real knife. So like I just kept swapping them because I'm like, I can't even. I flipped that thing. One of them actually fell in the ocean because I was on a fakie and I was just, and they said, phew, and it dropped in the ocean.
And it's still there for a diver to find at some point.
No, we got a diver. There was a diver who went and got it. However, my phone did fall overboard and it is in the ocean somewhere.
And in shooting the season, what did you find were the biggest learning curves for you that you had to kind of overcome in the type of spaces that this character was asking of you?
I think I would say the physicality of the character. Like this was definitely my first time playing a character that was this physical. It was a lot of stunt training, a lot of rehearsals. Like sometimes we would be rehearsing for a fight scene in between other scenes. So that was kind of the most challenging part. And I think the accent too, like, you know, really working with Kareem Lewis, like my accent coach who helps me really like craft the accent. It was so important for me to really represent the West Indies in a very powerful way. So I put a lot of work into, again, making her true to culture, a real Bahamian, a real West Indian queen. So all that put together, yeah, those were kind of the things that were kind of like, you know, got to push through.
I loved watching this season so much, and I hope that we get the opportunity to have plenty more of Cleo in future seasons of the show. Thank you so much, Carlacia.
Thank you. I appreciate it.